because you're totally right. We are not a location where you're going to find beautiful spas and massages and treatments. In fact, if that's what you're going to look for, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know, go to Thailand to get a beautiful spa and massage, or Bali, if that is the intention. I think especially in our day and age, it's the wellness of disconnection to reconnect. And I think that one of the traps that we have in our industry is work with trends. It's quite funny because in the 20 years that we've been doing this, I've heard everything, the experiential, the transformational, the this and the that, and all these buzzwords. I think, okay, we've ticked every box without setting out to do that. It's just simply because that is what we actually do. Because my husband and I came from a place of, we've been privileged enough to see a lot of the world. We weren't shaped by the industry itself. We're not hoteliers by profession. Well, now we are, but we weren't trained that way. And so we were able to really have a compass and cut out the noise. And what we've chosen to do is timeless. So we go beyond buzzwords, so to speak. And it's beautiful to see that, having seen the sort of extreme luxury and the massified tourism, people are really finally understanding what we set out to do 20 years ago. And there is a renewed appreciation for that level of authenticity and immersion. So we really hope that we will see more of this, that we will see smaller projects rather than the sort of massified urban propositions.
I agree. And we all know, kind of as we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation, luxury is really being redefined in this moment. And a lot of it is about space and taking time. And that sounds like exactly what people get to experience when they come to Galapagos Safari Camp. So you mentioned all these definitions, and I couldn't agree more with you. Not only are trends sometimes not the right way to go, but I think it confuses the traveler too. What am I supposed to be doing? And what does this mean? I love that you use nature-based a lot. Mm-hmm. I tend to like that, not only because I think people can understand that, but it's true to the essence of what we hope that travel continues to be, which is protecting nature. So how do you define it when it's really done right? What would you say nature-based hospitality is?
Well, first of all, I think that it can't be mass-produced, because that would go against it. However, it does require a balance, because it requires genuine hospitality with a level of comfort and a level of care, but mindfulness for restraint. So I think that finding that balance is tricky. Marrying good service and good hospitality with immersion and respect for the environment. It needs to be deeply rooted in the environment, so that we don't shape the place and we work with the place where we're operating, so that the experience feels both effortless and authentic. Because you see, if we go with that flow, we're not creating a huge footprint in the environment. It's the moment that we go massified and urbanized and too profit-driven that I think, as we discussed earlier, we can lose the plot a little bit. It doesn't require an enormous, it doesn't require a genius. It just requires love, passion, common sense, and commitment.
And intention, right? I've kind of held on to that word my whole career now in this space. And it's, if you just set out with intention and think about what your surroundings need from you, do a little research, then I think you're on the right path. So let's talk about the traveler. You have so many options when you come to the Galapagos Safari Camp. What does it look like if two travelers are coming with completely two different expectations. One is adventure driven. They want to just go, go, go and do everything they possibly can. One's a little slower and reflective. Take us through maybe two different journeys of a different traveler.
It always starts with understanding intent of our guests. So for someone more adventure driven, we would create a more dynamic itinerary. For example, diving, time at sea with a fisherman, for example. I would encourage privatizing the experience so that they can go at their own tempo and do as much as they want. So that would allow them freedom of place. For someone on the more reflective side of the spectrum, I would encourage to slow everything down, feel moments of deeper immersion, perhaps time with a scientist where they can actually get to understand a project, or with an artist where they can, potter around and observe their landscape. So activities that would allow them to both understand where they are and give them the time to reflect. So that's the beauty of being able to not throw everyone in the same boat and everyone doing the same activity, but design their itinerary to meet their expectations. We often have multi-generational families, and I love that because you have grandparents, parents, and children. And they all have different needs and different tempos. And those are the most challenging itineraries to build. But you can do it beautifully. And it's lovely to see the grandparents being there and observing their families without having to hold them back in a way,
Yes.
So there is a beauty in facilitating that.
And, I think a lot of urban hoteliers, if they would be, introduced to Galapagos Safari Camp, they would think that there aren't any kind of similarities in operations. But you've brought up so many things that mirror traditional hospitality, hyper-personalization, and helping people really tailor their trips based on the type of traveler they are, what they want to get out of the experience, and then who they're traveling with. So I think I think there can be a lot learned from something such as your organization. I think that's so wonderful. So let's talk about wellness a little bit. I mean, we've talked about it, but without saying the word wellness. And that's what I really love about a place like yours is, to me, this is the true sense of wellness. Yes, we all love a massage and we all love to pamper ourselves. But I think the most takeaway we can have are these types of wellness-driven experiences. How does this look different? How would you define the wellness takeaways that a traveler could get from Galapagos Safari Camp without a traditional spa?
Yeah, a great question. I think it would be the wellness of the soul, the wellness of connection, because you're totally right. We are not a location where you're going to find beautiful spas and massages and treatments. In fact, if that's what you're going to look for, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know, go to Thailand to get a beautiful spa and massage, or Bali, if that is the intention. I think especially in our day and age, it's the wellness of disconnection to reconnect. It is a place of raw nature and evolution. I think it is the wellness of understanding how we fit into the larger picture. Every time I go back to Galapagos, I ask myself, why am I so in love and enchanted with the Galapagos? How about our children? I mean, we chose to go to Galapagos. Our children didn't. They were just born there, and yet it is their happy place. And we've traveled as a family and as a couple extensively. Amazing places on earth. But there is something deep and meaningful and connecting about the Galapagos, which is wildlife and nature. You don't have natural predators in the Galapagos. So wherever you go, you're going to have these encounters, which are very special because you have no one running away from you. Whether you see the blue-footed boobies mating, or whether you are diving and you encounter whale sharks or reef sharks or hammerhead sharks. Everyone is minding their own business, And so you feel that you are in your rightful place, just one more creature amongst the many. It's a humbling experience. You stop being the protagonist. You're just one more element in this amazing life and universe and planet where we live in. So it's redefining. And so, yes, I think it's the wellness of mind, soul, spirit, and reconnection.
I love that so much. It gives me chills. I just, and people probably get sick to hear me say this, but I love animals so much. And I really, believe that animals can solve a lot of the problems that we have in the world, because when we reconnect with them and we appreciate them, they connect us with a part of ourselves that we're not always connected with on an everyday basis. And we forget to, have that curiosity and spirituality and all of the things that they possess when we're going through our busy, busy lives. So, I love thinking about those encounters that people dream about. We read about those things in books when we're children, and the blue-footed booby, when you look on your website, it's just so magical. Okay, so let's start to wrap up a little bit and tell me, in a place as fragile as Galapagos, what gives you hope and optimism, in a world that's kind of crazy, that, in terms of travel and tourism, we hear about a lot of, disheartening things happening, but how do you find hope in these moments?
Well, in the Galapagos specifically, it gives me hope. And I really pray this will continue to be the case, that there won't be that level of over-tourism that we've seen in other places, because it is a national park. I mean, yes. 97% of the archipelago is a national park. It is a place where making anything happen is extremely difficult. So yes. You have to have a passion in order to do that. So I hope that limiting factor will prevail. That would be one part of my answer. And then the other one, Galapagos gives me hope at every level, because I see the resilience of nature. Whether it's an El Niño year and species are affected because of lack of food, for example, but they adapt. And it's not for nothing that the Galapagos is the cradle of evolution, and where Darwin came to understand this. You see it. There are studies, for example, the Grant couple who have been studying how finches, the beak of the finch has evolved in real time. And you see how they adapt to whether there is more or less food because it's been a more rainy year or less rainy year.